Okay. So now you know it's recording.
Okay. Good morning.
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you joined the military.
I was halfway through college. And what can I say? Not very motivated, halfway through college, young kid. And I grew up in New England, actually. I'm from Boston. And a city that I really enjoy visiting is Salem, Mass. Salem was a whaling capital, strong Navy history, House of Seven Gables, Salem witch trials, all of that type of thing. So I love Salem. And I walked down Salem one day, and there was a submarine. And I fell in love with submarine duty. So next door to the submarine was a Navy recruiting, and I signed up.
What year was that?
Oh my, 1966.
Okay.
So long story, I can get it. But basically, I signed up the Navy thinking I'd be a submariner. I was Navy Reserve while going to school. And things didn't work out in terms of submarine duty. And I said, gee, okay, what can I do in the military now that's not related to submarine duty? My mom was a Navy nurse. My dad was a Navy frogman. They said, whatever you want to do, don't be a corpsman or a medic. So that's what I became.
Now, did your parents serve during World War II?
Yes, actually, I'm a third generation Purple Heart. My grandfather was wounded in World War I in Alsace. My father was a Navy frogman in the Pacific, was wounded. My mother was a Navy nurse, and the rest was history. And then I was wounded in Vietnam.
Okay.
So that doesn't happen very often.
That is interesting.
That is an interesting.
Right. So anyway, after submarine duty, Navy Reserve for a while. Finally I said, no, college wasn't at me at the time. So I signed up to go active duty. Corps school in Great Lakes, Illinois. That's medic school. Followed by, at that time, and let me just back up a little bit. The Marines use the Navy medical staff as well as chaplaincy staff. So don't tell the Marines, but the Marines are part of the Navy. Okay. So at that time, when I became a corpsman or medic, chances are I slided for Vietnam. So after Corps school and field med school, I was assigned to Chelsea Naval Hospital, which was close to my hometown. Now they're in high expensive condos. And then active duty in Vietnam. Short history in terms of active duty of Vietnam. As a corpsman, I was assigned to the front lines with the Marines. I was wounded. Spent 3 months in a hospital ship.
Which hospital ship?
Repose. And again, I'm grateful. I won't go into all the details, but it wasn't for Marine that picked me up and threw me on the last chapter, I wouldn't be around today. So I'm grateful for that, grateful for the Marines. Medevaced back to a place called Quezon, okay. And the Marines had a policy at the time, if a corpsman was wounded, not on the front line, so I was doing a burn pit duty, okay, in Vietnam. And then eventually discharged, went back to college, married, had a life, family, and grateful for a loving God who made it all possible, in a nutshell. So, yeah. Oh, and then as a result of that, and I've had the honor and humility of being the administrator of 2 veterans homes, one here in Bellevue for 4 years, and the other in Minnesota for 4 years as well. So I had the opportunity to give back as well. So, and for which I'm very, very grateful.
When you signed up with the Navy recruiter, did you realize you'd be going to Vietnam?
Oh no, because I signed up, I initially wanted submarine duty. And in those days, the sub duty was, you go to Scotland, you're 6 months work and 6 months off. And I thought that was pretty good. So, no, when I ultimately became a corpsman, then I think, oh, yes. But
So you knew.
So yeah. And I know when I worked for the state of Minnesota and the state of Nebraska, I told my boss, sorry, I can't get the lead out. So anyway, grateful for the experience, chapter of my life, and grateful to be here today.
Other than being wounded, are there specific incidents in Vietnam that come to mind? Positive and negative?
Well, actually, maybe not necessarily Vietnam, but I wanted to go back, and I haven't been very active in military affairs. But as I was retiring, I decided to go back for the reunion of the Marine Company they were having in Montana. And I thought, I need to go back to thank the Marines for saving my bacon. Okay, so I went back to the company, and I have to understand, Navy corpsmen are kind of a hybrid. we're Navy and at the same time Marines, all right? And so there were about 150 people there, about 5 of us corpsmen. And I'll tell the story. I spoke to one Marine, and I said, this is my first time back. I wanted to thank the Marines for and all of that. And they said, have you met this other corpsman? And I said, no, I haven't. So I met Neil. And Neil said, so what company were you with in the 26 Marines? I said, I was in my company. And he said, can I see you tomorrow for a cup of coffee? And I said, sure. And he said, you're in my company. I said, really? He said, yes. There's a Doc Smitty that came from New England. You and I are in both company. You were wounded, and for 45 years, I didn't know what happened to you. So, glad to have the reunion, and
Are you still in touch with him?
occasionally a Christmas card, but that type of thing. So, I mean, he was grateful we finally connected, and I was grateful. And as I went to that Marine Corps reunion, I told one of the officers, I said, I'm very, very grateful for have the opportunity to say thank you. And he said, Doc, you're always welcome. See these 150 Marines? I said, yes. Many of them have 2 and 3 Purple Hearts. Many of them wouldn't be here if it weren't for the docs. So.
What year was that reunion?
Let's see, I retired in
Approximately.
2014.
So have you gone again? Do you have an interest in reading? No. Okay.
I went once, said thank you, and I just, and again, Vietnam's a chapter in my life, an important chapter in my life. I'm grateful for, again, Providence and where I am today. But because of my service in Vietnam was somewhat broken, the people I served with, by the time I was on the hospital ship, many of them, some of them didn't come back, but some of them had come back again. So I wasn't really connected with anybody through my time in Vietnam because I was on a hospital ship for quite a while.
Have you ever been interested in connecting with people on the repose?
Actually, I've tried a couple of times, and I said, I remember being on the repos, and there was a storm, and somebody said, excuse me, storm hell. That was a hurricane. It almost sank the old tub. And I'll tell you another story. Being a corpsman, I was wounded to a field medical hospital. From a field medical hospital, helicopter, collapsed lung to the repos. As I landed on the repos, I was on a gurney, and one of the other corpsmen said, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're safe. He took the wrong turn and crashed my IV bottle. So I have to laugh in terms of saying, and what can you say? You laugh and life goes on, right? But I was hoping to connect with him, but I haven't connected with anybody at repos, but I still have some souvenirs from repos and grateful for that experience and grateful for the people that were there and served.
Okay. I mean, my guess is, are there email groups or online groups who served on the repose by years or something that you could look, or haven't you looked?
I have looked, I haven't, you know, there was one particular corpsman, that was the corpsman that broke my IV bottle. I tried to connect and not. But it was, again, you know, a lot of change, the repose, folks coming and going, but, you know, grateful for that. While I was there, you know, and while I was there, I managed to get Subic Bay, Philippines, and Hong Kong for liberty, and, you know, good Navy saying is give me liberty or give me death. So, so I had the opportunity to see Hong Kong and the Philippines.
What were your times in Vietnam?
Started July 4th, 1967, came home June of 68.
Were you in country for Tet of 68?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have any memories of that experience?
Well, no, because I was on the hospital ship at that time.
Okay.
So I, you know,
Okay.
I was wounded at the time, recovering, and then came back.
Well, that was good.
Came back to Quezon. So.
Have you spoken to your family about your Vietnam experience?
Mhm. Yeah.
Have they asked, or you told them?
I think I've told them, and grandchildren as well. You know, had the opportunity. What was the organization that Quilts for Valor? And several years ago, somebody gave me a quilt for valor, and my son lives here in town, and that was very humbling, you know, certainly. And for many years, I didn't plug into the VA system because, you know, my comment was, I'm healthy, really don't need that. Several years ago, I did, and grateful for the VA too. So that's my primary care provider now. Yeah, what can I say? That's my story.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, did you share with us your first mission that you went out on when you got into Vietnam? Can you remember that first time going out?
Well, actually, you know, we were company, and quite the first time going out was when I was wounded. Okay, okay. I landed in country July 4th. You know, we were doing some, you know, getting together with Marines and all of that. And then we went up to the I Corps in a place called Con Thien. And I was a medic on the landing zone, you know, triaging wounded. And that's why I was wounded. And I was, quite frankly, in the last chapter out, as Marines were getting hit pretty heavily. So again, grateful for the Marines for picking me up, throwing me on the chopper, and I'm here today, thanks to that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, so how long were you on the repose again?
About 4 months.
Okay. And that's the first place you went? No.
Well, actually, from the field, then to medevac to a field hospital.
Okay.
Okay, from a field hospital, quote, stabilized, because I did have a collapsed lung, IVs, medevaced again to the repose.
So interesting that they took you to a repo, to a...
Because the repose needed surgery. I mean, I needed surgery because my
So
lung
they
was
did
collapsed.
surgery
I
on
had
the ship.
shrapnel in the back. The repose is a hospital ship, so that's where. I mean, at the hospital, the field hospital, you couldn't do what they call exploratory laparoscopic surgery.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I went to the repose, because I,
Okay.
cut out the shrapnel.
Oh, wow. Sorry, this is new to me. I didn't know about a hospital trip.
Yeah.
Do you know what field hospital you went to?
Was it the one at Da Nang?
Was that run by the Marines? No.
Marines and Navy. Yep. It was not a MASH unit. No. Okay.
Hawkeye did not work?
No. Okay. And, I remember the classic statement, what kind of scar? Enlisted or officer? Yeah. Okay. So, what else can I say?
Well, no, there's lots more to say. So what did you do, or where did you do your training for, was it down in?
Well,
Keys?
actually, from the reserve, then I went to Great Lakes
Okay,
for core school training. That's like 8 weeks of how to be anatomy and physiology, broken
Right.
bones, blah, 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 blah. And then from there, then Camp Lejeune for field medical training, okay? And that's when the corpsmen actually trained with the Marines for combat
Right.
treatment. So I
That
had,
makes sense.
I had both of those. I standard corps school, and I remember at the end of the corps school, my buddy and I said, okay, where would we like to serve? Oh, wouldn't it be fun to serve to Antarctica? Wouldn't it be fun to serve on, an aircraft carrier? And yeah, we all knew. Okay.
So Vietnam was the first place you served?
Yes, that was the only place, because
Okay.
that's where the corpsmen were going.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe a stop along the way.
Well, actually, after that, then Chelsea Naval Hospital, Chelsea, Mass.
That's in Massachusetts?
Right. Right. So I was there for several months.
And then over to Vietnam.
Mhm. And that's typically, here's corps school, here's Fed Mount School, spend some time in the hospital until things get sorted out, and then boom.
What was the attitude about going to Vietnam when you were going over?
Oh my.
Among your military? And then I'm gonna ask about the civilian community,
Sure.
like your family and friends.
Well, I think going over, it's, how do I say that, the John Wayne syndrome. We're going to make the world a better place. We have might, we're going to, yeah. And we're all full of that,
Save the world from communism.
all of that. Yep. And actually went back to college, and I, 6 months after coming back home, married, thank goodness for the GI Bill, back to college again. So I really wasn't involved and I was involved in studies and adjusting to married life and all of that type of thing. So I really wasn't involved in a lot of, the community because I was busy in studies. And when I came back, it was, I like history and I like econ, so I majored in that. Much better focus in terms of school than went on to grad school, University of Iowa. And, so had a focus, had a purpose, and had a loving life.
But you used the GI Bill for your school when you first got
Absolutely.
back?
And again, grateful for that as well.
And then you really didn't do much in terms of veteran affairs until
Well,
recently?
actually, yes. We had worked overseas for several years. My oldest son was born in Papua New Guinea. Okay. My youngest son was born in Malawi. We had done 8 to 10 years of overseas, both combination of mission and government health work and services. So we're very fortunate, traveled around a lot and still love to do some traveling. So we had done that, come back, and then began a career in terms of long-term care, senior services, spent nursing homes, government service, government-run institutions. First position really was at the CEO of the Veterans Home in Minneapolis. And it's a large facility, 540 beds, and was there 3.5 years. And at that point, I think I belonged to every veterans organization because they're very, very good to the Veterans Home. Okay. And then fast forward, was in Colorado. Situation there wasn't working out. My son said, hey, look, there's a job at Nebraska to be a CEO of a Veterans Home. How about applying that? I did, and I was, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in Bellevue for 4.5 years. So, and I one of the joys of that is, serving people from World War II. And I remember the folks from Offutt are very supportive of the Veterans Home in Bellevue. And I remember one day, one of the 4-stars from Offutt came to the Veterans Home and had a cup of coffee with somebody with a Bronze Star. And I thought, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. So I, ended my career, serving veterans at the Veterans Home. Grateful for that. And yeah.
While you were overseas, like you said, your son was born in Papua New Guinea and then you were in Malawi. Did you ever travel back to Vietnam?
No.
Do you have any interest in going back?
Not really. I'd rather see other parts of the world.
Fair. I
I mean, it's not how do I say, it's therapeutic for me. I mean, I understand what some people it is, but for me, it's, again, a chapter of my life, grateful, and quite frankly, time to move on.
Well, not only therapeutic, do you have any, I mean, are you curious or interested in seeing where it is 50 years later? 50,
Not really.
almost 55.
No, not really.
Earlier you mentioned something about you really weren't into the system because you felt healthy and whatnot. That's kind of, so when did you decide that you should, get back into the veteran healthcare system?
Actually, I was in Colorado, and there was a maintenance guy I worked with, and he said, Jeff, if not for you, then for your wife and family. And he gave me the guilt trip. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I am disabled, according to the VA.
Right.
I have some, my stomach looks like a Christmas tree, but,
So it wasn't until you were in Colorado that you didn't.
Yeah, well, and then I plugged into the VA in Colorado, and then I transferred here when I came with a job in Bellevue.
And your whole reason for not really being part of the system is just because you felt fine.
Well, and again, it's part of, let the services be for those that really need it. Okay. And finally, a friend of mine said, it's not a question of services for those that needed it. You served,
Deserved it.
And I don't like to use the word entitled. But, that's a benefit for you. That's a benefit that accrue to you and your family. Please take advantage of that. And I said, okay.
I'm glad that person told you that.
Absolutely. And again, I'm grateful for the VA and, good doc and serve at the clinic here and grateful for that experience.
Yes. So when you were on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
did you meet anyone, like other than the guy who almost tipped over your IV,
Mm-hmm.
were there any people that you met that shared a story with you or that you just felt like you were interested in their story or their situation?
Not really. I mean, somebody, we were, while on the hospital ship, I did get an infection, so that's why I had to stay longer. Okay, and here are the bunks, 4 and 5 bunks high, and somebody said, well, look at the dorms now, the Army, we have 2 bunks to a room. I said, 2 bunks to a room? I had 4 and 5 bunks high. Okay, on the hospital ship.
On a ship.
Yeah, okay. And during a hurricane,
Yeah.
or tsunami, whatever it's called.
Working in veterans' homes, did the subject of Vietnam come up? Because
sure.
there must have been Vietnam vets
Sure,
who,
absolutely.
unfortunately, even though age-wise, but health-wise, would need it. Did you share stories, or did they ask you about your service?
Sometimes. And I think one of the stories I like to share is that at that time, it was, I think, John Hilgert, Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, said, we have somebody here, a young lady whose husband just came back from Iraq and very, very bitter about experience there and what's happening in Vietnam. Would you mind reaching out to him? And I said, I'll be glad to, because I said, don't get involved in the politics, okay? Because the politics are always going to change. But you served your country, value that. No matter what happens to the country after that, you serve, that's to be honored, that's to be respected, and please don't lose sight of that. And if you need some help, please plug into the VA, because they're here to help you. So, that experience, coming from a Vietnam experience to help somebody from Iraq experience, I thought was very positive.
Doris, you were going to ask about the civilian side of going in, and
We lost that,
we did
yeah.
lose that. I'm sorry.
No, and I kind of forgot, thank you.
Basically, I didn't have much contact civilian after I came back because I was, again, newly married, heavy into books.
No, we mean before you went into Vietnam, right? Like, what was the feeling? Because you talked about you and the guys at Camp Lejeune, where you're going to go next. But did you have contact with your family? And how were how was the feeling of going into Vietnam from that aspect?
Well, both my dad and my mom, World War II, they basically said, are you crazy? You know, they survived war. I didn't know what war was about. I didn't have a clue as a young, naive, you know, war's hell. Lost several friends, and when I go to the mall, you know, tears come to my eye because those are my friends. So, you know, sometimes kids don't listen to the parents,
Lots of times.
you know.
Did you have brothers or sisters?
2 half-brothers.
Okay.
Did they serve or?
No. And my 2 boys, no. After 3 Purple Hearts, I think that's enough.
For one family.
Did they have any interest in serving? And they may have been kind of time.
No. No.
Back to the civilian question, when you returned, was there still a positive attitude overall, or had it started to become negative? Or do you recall? You know, you were focused on your life.
I was focused on my life in school, but I remember there were only a few veterans. I went to a small school north of Boston. You know, there's 1,000 students, 1,000 acres, and at that time $1,000. Okay, okay. So there weren't that many students, and there weren't that many veterans. So I think myself and kind of the veterans hung around and had coffee. But I mean, we were really, that was the only connection with other veterans. It wasn't in the hotbed of controversy. It was kind of what's going on with life, and let's focus on school. So.
Were there many older students?
No. No. And then after college and grad school, then we served overseas for a while, New Guinea and Africa and Southern Africa, and you know. So yeah, we have an interesting history, don't I?
So when did you return to the U.S. on a permanent?
81. And I think then, you know, 30-plus year career in health, senior services, and I think I looked at probably a quarter of that was veterans homes.
Right, but you were gone from about 71, 72 to 8.
73 to 81.
Which, yeah,
Yeah.
that's significant.
Right.
In terms of what happened.
Mm-hmm. Right, I was overseas.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you return in between?
Let's see, a couple of years in New Guinea, we returned for a couple of months. Opportunity then came to work in Malawi. After Malawi, came back for a couple of months. Then Jordan. So yeah, back and forth.
Any reaction or sense of, even, you know, I heard you say avoid the political, but that's years down the road. But as you returned during that time, any feeling as a Vietnam vet about what was going on during your return visits, or were you preoccupied with other things?
Preoccupied with being a dad. Okay. Husband, trying to get the next job overseas. Yeah, you know.
Were all those jobs in healthcare, or?
Yeah. Working for the, what was it? New Guinea Hospital Administrator, a mission hospital in the highlands of New Guinea. Malawi, interesting enough, I had a job as part of German foreign aid. I served mission hospitals in Malawi for 3 years, traveling all over the country. Jordan, U.S. AID project, working with health planning, and the same thing in Lesotho. So I was part of a foreign aid.
How do you think your Navy service and experience in Vietnam changed you?
Short-term callous. Long-term, somewhat. You know, government is not the savior. and I'm not necessarily, might does not make right. I think we can do more to help the world as Americans rather than military.
Okay, those are your political views. I'd say as a person.
Same,
Okay.
same. I mean, the war is hell. And it takes an amazing toll on people in our country. And I think there's other ways. And somewhat cynical of government and the political process.
Do you think some of that comes from the fact that you did serve? And, you know, like you said before, you went to, you were, you know, like the submarines, and you went into the
Mhm.
Navy and stuff. You were at school. You were going to
Mhm.
college, and then you still signed up to be in the military. So would you say that you joined, you served, you saw what you saw, you came back, and it changed your view then?
Oh, absolutely,
That's the
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, again, a chapter of my life, an important chapter of my life, okay? But there's other factors of my life. And I'm grateful for all of that, and that's my life experience. I mean, so my sense is, and I think as we look back in terms of what's the legacy of Vietnam, I think the legacy is, no matter what happens, we support the person. We may not support what's going on, but let's support the troops. And I certainly value that, okay? Okay. And I think that's the legacy that we gave. And I think that's an important legacy. And VA and all kinds of things came out of that experience, which, looking back, are positive today. I mean, I think we're much more supportive of the troops today than we were then. Okay, and that's positive.
it's growth.
No, Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
No doubt about that.
yeah, I mean, we have technology as a result of that experience that's helping people. We have, you know, all kinds of positive things that came out of that experience. Women in the military, I mean, all of that. So I think we've progressed as a country, and for that I'm grateful. For that I'm grateful.
Are you? Have you asked all your questions?
I think so. I don't know. I just want to make sure.
Pretty unusual interview, right?
Every interview is different.
I'm sure they are.
Every interview.
I'm sure they are.
I have not had one interview be anywhere near like another.
No.
But
Well, and again, but you have the joy of saying, okay, different stories and different people.
yeah, can you go ahead and turn it off?